Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water. A closer look at agriculture in South Carolina and conversations between the current and future leaders of agriculture in the Palmetto State and experts from across America. Presented by the students of the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Howe.
Welcome into this edition of Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water. My name is McCall. I am the farm manager of the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture. And here with us today, we have the group from the Bart Garrison Agricultural Museum. Guys, welcome to our podcast, and thank you for being here today. The Bart Garrison Agricultural Museum is located in Pendleton, South Carolina, right directly across from Tri-County Tech. And you guys have been around for a while and have been a major player in preserving the state's history as it pertains to agriculture. I'd like to go around the table and introduce everybody, and I'd like to start across the table from me with Les McCall.
Les McCall. I'm the director of the Agricultural Museum of South Carolina.
I'm Jordan Bannister, and I'm the event coordinator for the Iron Oak Barn.
I'm Josh Johnson. I'm the site coordinator for the Agricultural Museum.
And I'm Andrew Stevenson. I do grants and fundraising for the Agricultural Museum.
Okay, so I would like to kind of get an overview of maybe the mission, the vision of the Bart Garrison Agricultural Museum, and hear a little bit about what you guys do and how you interact with the public. And Les, why don't you fill us in on what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. The mission of the Agricultural Museum is to present agriculture's history and the past, the present, and the future of agriculture in our state. And we have a number of exhibits, indoor and outdoor, at the museum to where we interpret the history and the future of agriculture. Our beginnings, we began as a regional museum for Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens back in the 70s. And since then, we got a new mission from Columbia in 2012 to expand to the state as a whole and interpret the entire story of agriculture across our state. And we reopened in 2013 to the public, and since that time, the last 11 years, we have been putting into creating more exhibits, more dynamic exhibits to get us up to that state museum level. So we have everything from the history of the boll weevil up to agricultural drones in today's market.
That's very interesting. I think that's one thing that our two organizations have in common, that at one time we started out with one mission, and over time that mission has changed and refocused. As many people know, here at John De La Howe, our mission has changed, and in 2019 we became a governor's school. So that's one thing we share in common. Jordan, I heard you speaking a while ago about the Iron Oak Barn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role is and how things are run over there at the Iron Oak Barn?
Sure, and that's definitely a touch point on change. The Iron Oak Barn is the event center for the Bart Garrison Agricultural Museum. So we're just across the parking lot. So the barn is our event space, and we have weddings, birthdays, conferences. We just recently had a fishing tournament dinner. So there's not really an event that we won't do over at the house, but it's an over 100-year-old mule barn that was disassembled out of Star Iva and rebuilt right on the grounds of the museum. It was a tremendous endeavor of rebuild, and we used as much historic material as we possibly could to sort of show honor and homage to the barn's original structure, and then needed to be shored up to South Carolina safety code, so she's hurricane proof. But it's this really neat balance of history and modernity. And I think one of my favorite parts about the barn is that our bridal suite actually has the original mule tack bars inside of it. And everyone loves this joke, mostly the dads. It's the bridal suite and the bridal suite. So it has some of our original hardware and our fixtures. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why people like the space so much is that look back at the history and a look back at just sort of a different time where they can begin to make new memories and change the future with us.
So one of the questions that folks may have out there is, why have a museum? Why put the time and effort into assembling all these old dusty relics of the past? What's the intrinsic value in that?
Yeah, I think as with most museums, there's certainly an impact of sight. You go in there and you see, you can hear all these stories about, well, walk behind a mule 10 hours a day, and you think, oh, okay. But then you go in, you see the equipment, you see what it took, you see the labor that was involved, and you can really make a connection with, say, your grandparents' generation, because these things, existed well up until after World War II. A lot of our stuff, especially mule-drawn equipment. And then you have the tactile interaction too. We don't have a No Touch Me museum. We have a museum where, in a lot of places, you can actually interact with it in a tactile way. And that's, I think, a really powerful thing to see things from the past, touch, feel, see, and, put yourself in the shoes of the people who came before.
Josh, I have had the pleasure of being on some tours that you guided. And, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at the museum? And
So as the site coordinator, kind of the museum itself is what I have to steward. So I cover a lot of the curation of new exhibits and kind of protecting the artifacts that we have, because we receive artifacts from agricultural history from the entire state. We try and exhibit some of these farm stories that we receive, because a lot of locals come in and tell stories to us, and it's important to preserve those stories, preserve the memories that go into them. A big part of what I do, especially this coming year, is we'll be working with the Century Farm program. So we manage the state Century Farm program, which is any farm that's been in the same family for at least 100 years is eligible to get on the program. It's free to join. We have a large list on our website of all the Century Farms across the county or across the state, and I think we're almost to about 500 from across the entirety of South Carolina. This year, we received a grant from Ag South for me to actually go out and interview these century farmers, take photos of the farms, collect these stories and this information, because these people make up our agricultural heritage. They have seen everything from the revolution all the way up to aquaponics and drone technology. We're seeing farms that have these stories that predate South Carolina. The oldest one is down in Charleston County. It's been in the same family since 1696.
wow,
And then we have farms just this year that they just turned 100 and they've already applied to join the program. So
They've been waiting.
they've been
that's
waiting.
crazy.
And I'm always looking for new century farmers. We're always trying to reach out to these agricultural communities, and because each story is different, each farm is different, each family has more information to give and tell, and it's important to preserve and share that information with the entire state and the country.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, Andrew, I don't want to leave you out. I think, as I understand it, your role is kind of sometimes behind the scenes, right? But you're the guy who's back there working, trying to get the funds together, and
They try to keep me in the kitchen out of the public eye as much as possible.
We do
He's
our
the
best.
keep him in the closet.
But no, thank Josh for the plug of the South Carolina Century Farm program. My family's got a century farm that I got designated before I ever worked for Lake Hartwell Country. Just love everything about that program, and actually have 3 applications on my desk right now that you'll be getting when you get back. Josh just had a child, so congratulations to him. He's got a few things to do when he gets back. But yeah, so I do grants and fundraising. The museum is donations based, so we're always looking for grants and programs to add new exhibits and aspects to the museum. Right now, we're working on an African American exhibit for African American history and agriculture specifically that we got a grant for. And when I'm not writing those grants and doing reports and things like that, I'm working for Jordan, doing pretty much anything and everything barn related, from cutting grass to cooking pork and brisket. And
Well, I was going to mention that. I was going to say, I hear you're a pretty mean cook, so
gotten a lot of practice. Yeah, we've been catering a bunch of events every year. Like I said, we stay busy from everything from our own fundraisers that we'll sometimes do offsite for various things, to the many that we do for weddings and every kind of event you can imagine that Jordan can get us. So yeah, it's fun, but everybody loves the barn. They always remark on there's a character that you really can't get with a new barn build. So yeah, the builders did a real good job getting that character in there. So
I'm sure they were a great group of guys.
yeah.
But anyway, well, thank you for that. And I want y'all to throw out how, if someone's interested in coming to the Bart Garrison Ag Museum, how do they contact you guys? Got a website, got email?
Yep, absolutely. Website, bgamsc.org. Jump on there and see what's going on at any time. And you can reach us via email. And that's a little bit longer of a situation, but it's either Josh at lakehartwellcountry.com or myself, Les at lakehartwellcountry.com, and then insert Jordan and Andrew at same location. And Lake Hartwell Country is our parent organization, so that's where those email addresses come from. But yeah, reach out to us and get in touch.
Great.
Groups, small groups, homeschool groups, come see us.
Museum is open Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 10 to 4.
10 to 4, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I will say, I'll throw this out there. If you happen to be in the Pendleton area and just kind of looking for something to do, it's a great place to take the kids. I think it's a really good environment, and the kids love it. But I want to move on to our next subject, which is the recent collaboration between our organizations. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture recently inherited a museum that was formerly housed at the Edisto Research Station in Blackville, and it was the South Carolina Heritage Corridor Museum. It seemed that we were a good fit to house that display because we are also on the Heritage Corridor. So back in the summer of 2023, a group from the Governor's School went down. Mr. Tony Bowman was heavily involved in cataloging and making sure that we had all the details on all the artifacts. Josh, you were in on that. Spent a good bit of time down there helping with that. And then all those artifacts were moved up here to our campus. And now a good portion of those are on display in our kind of trademark dairy barn that is located here on our campus. And so it's been a process because it was already put up. It was in a little bit larger space. So we had the logistics of moving all those artifacts and then putting them out where people can view them, and coming up with a good way to interpret those. But you guys, just want everybody to know that these guys jumped in and kind of help us put all that together. And at the Governor's School for Agriculture, we're very appreciative of all your efforts. But just want to kind of, kick around the table, describe your thoughts on the museum and the museum move and the potential that it has for the future. Les, what you think?
Well, first off, we're all of us enormously appreciative of the partnership, and I think it's a natural fit between the Governor's School and the Agricultural Museum. And I know we had a lot of fun on the project. I'm not so sure about Josh down in the heat in Blackville, but I know, bless his heart. But as far as setting it up in the dairy barn, it was a fantastic experience, and we really enjoyed it. And I just think, again, that partnership, that's what's crucial in all of us who are involved in agriculture and agricultural history, to reach out, branch out throughout the state, make partnerships. And again, it's just a totally natural fit for the museum and the Governor's School.
One of my favorite parts about the job that we do is being able to put hands on these artifacts, things that have not been explored or moved in years and years and years. So being granted the opportunity to come in and tell a story with the collection, winnow down so that we didn't have duplicate items, sort of set each piece, each of our little settings. And I do encourage folks to come by and take a look at that exhibit because it did turn out pretty nice, if I can compliment us all on that.
Right.
But it was just such a fun moment to be able to restage and reset all of those things and give them the respect that they deserve, because those artifacts are stories that people need told, and we need to put eyes on them so that we can learn from them.
As Tony can testify, you can fry an egg on a car hood Blackville in August. It was an absolutely miserable day. But seeing where the space came from, where the artifacts came from, that the research station, it was in one of the historic buildings on that campus, and seeing how other museums operated and kind of how their collections added to this, like you said, this fabric of history throughout our whole state. I mean, we talked about this earlier, off mic. Our state's agriculture is so varied and so diversified. It depends on where you go. The story is entirely different. If you're in the PD or in the coast, you're looking at tobacco. Where this collection came from had a lot of asparagus and a lot of artifacts related to the growing of that crop and its importance in the state. And then the upstate, you have a lot of livestock and dairy farming. So it really gives us a chance to see how agriculture shifts depending on where you are geographically and over time. And it's important to see our state as one larger story rather than all these little chunks that are kind of separated.
Yeah, and for me, the really neat thing about any museum, but I've grown up around agriculture, and it still I'm amazed at the things you'll come across. We found numerous artifacts that I didn't know what they were. The can't suck is the one we were talking about this morning. Device used to wean cows, but yeah, I just love that aspect, and kids to adults to people that were alive in the 30s and 40s when they were using these things. I think everybody's got something to learn from that
Absolutely.
history.
Everybody's got something to learn from history. And I do think it's neat. There's one particular display where the mules are a focal point, and mule power was the main source of whereas tractors are now. And simple things like that I think there are things that we take for granted today with the advent of technology, that tasks that, like right now, may not be so difficult 100 years ago were exceedingly difficult. And so I think that one of the important parts of having museums like, I guess ours now, because we have one, you guys have one of the important parts is to kind of help put some of these things into perspective. Because the landscape of agriculture has changed immensely in where it used to depend a lot more on physical manual labor versus now we're an industry that's really heavily dependent on technology. And Les, I heard you a while ago talk about, part of y'all's mission is to kind of focus on the future of agriculture, where it's headed. And I think the sky's the limit on where we're headed in agriculture.
Absolutely. It's some of the favorite pieces of mine from the collection y'all have now are the mule drone implements, and just putting yourself in the shoes of a farmer in the 1920s, literally behind a mule, and just the difficulty and the work that it took just to plow, just to seed, just to cultivate. You understand exactly how far we've come. And then in our Future of Agriculture exhibit, we've got a drone set up, a sprayer drone. And so it's just fascinating to see that in just 100 years, because you look at the fabric of history over tens, thousands of years at least, and we've come to only so far. And then in 100 years, we just leapt forward in immense leaps and bounds. And it's kind of staggering to see the difference in our museum of our setup with our mule Dusty. He's a life-size plastic mule, and our setup from Dusty all the way to an agricultural drone. It's just fascinating to see that in a century we've come so far.
Well, and with the advent of AI in this business, AI has meant one thing for a long time, and it's not artificial intelligence. But now AI is a buzzword that's on everybody's mind. And in the terms of artificial intelligence. And I think that's a topic probably for another podcast, but that is something that is really changing the face of business in general. But I know it's going to have a huge impact on agriculture. And I think it's, as these new things develop, I think it's always important to stay connected to where you came from, because honestly, if you think about it, there are skills that kind of need to be preserved, because, none of us know what's around the corner, But if we did not have access to that technology for some reason, we still need to be knowledgeable enough, connected enough, have the skill set to be able to grow our food without all this technology.
That's true.
And so, well, guys, I just want to say thank you for what you've done with helping us with what we're doing. I look forward to future collaborations down the road, and I hope that you guys will stay in touch and be able to work together in the future.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. And I think we've all enjoyed it and appreciate the partnership.
For sure. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Field, Forest, and Water, and see you next time.
Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water. A closer look at agriculture in South Carolina and conversations between the current and future leaders of agriculture in the Palmetto State and experts from across America. Presented by the students of the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Howe. For more information on the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture, visit our website at delahowe.sc.gov.